Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Levi from Dynamic. We are a business helping accounting firms using AI and certain automations to basically make more money, save more money, and just making life easier. This is the podcast, The Balance, and today I'm with a very special guest, Mark. Mark, thank you so much for your time. Could you quickly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Mark Stiles. I'm a CPA out of New Hampshire at this point in time. We're a virtual CPA firm, so that's why I say at this point in time. So we kind of can be everywhere, but we're based out of New Hampshire. We have a little bit of a different model for CPA firms than others are used to. We're a fully distributed firm. We have staff in Florida, in Illinois, as well as we have an outsourced unit that we leverage as well, which is kind of one of those behind the kimono thing that a lot of people don't want to talk about, right? But it's definitely a useful resource allocation that we can leverage to ensure that we have the optimal services for our clients as we serve them. Founded in Mark Stiles CPA, otherwise known as MAS CPA, was kind of born to be a virtual firm. I had just finished up an engagement with a partner for another firm and really wanted to change the paradigm of how CPA firms approach business as well as approach to working with their customers. And to do that, it was really kind of going, hey, listen, you know, typically people come into our fancy desk, we charge them for the moment that they walk in, and that's kind of that more like legal, I wanted to say, lawyer style relationship of a very transactional. I give you information and I immediately bill you for it. And we saw more value in trimming the cost by staying virtual and not having that brick and mortar cost that we have to put on top of a customer or the customer's bill, right? But also so that we could then transfer those savings on to small business owners. So then they immediately saw some value in tax return pricing and bookkeeping pricing, and then wanted to spend more time with us talking about advisory services and really building their business to success. And that's kind of where our company's evolved over time. Obviously, at the beginning, there's death and taxes, and that is what we do as CPAs, right? Like, CPAs, accounting firms, anything, they're going to start with the compliance level services, which is very much a look back philosophy, but it's a tried and true philosophy, right? There is death and taxes, as I said earlier. So we know that is something that is always going to pay the bills. And that's the best way of thinking about it. But that also creates a very transactional relationship with small business owners. And small business owners need more. And it's important for us as accountants, as CPAs, as bookkeepers to realize that we touch so many different businesses that we can be one of the best advisory components for small business owners to know more, to learn more, and to take steps that are outside of the realm of them just the doing, right?
hmm
I come from a construction background. I started off as a controller for a site development company down in South Florida. And, I was always amazed by what the owner could do. He could sit down and he could tell you the substrate, the asphalt levels, how much of everything that he needs, exactly what needs to be done, the tools that needed to be done, the heavy machinery we needed to have out on a certain plot of land to really make it successful. That was one side of the business. But there was a whole other side of the business of all of those things factored in, and we've purchased all that. Are we actually making money? And that's kind of where the advisory component, but also the completeness of your books, the completeness of your compliance comes into big play, right? Because advisory can't do anything without compliance, and compliance is just telling you what's happened, and advisory is telling you what's going to happen. So when we talk about that idea of that business owner that really knew everything, could tell you every single thing about how they operate, being able to help control how we price it, how we maintain cost projections, and how we ensure that there's always consistent cash flow is the duality of business that we're working on, right? So there's the doing, and then there's the numbers behind it. And just
hmm
like a quarter that you would have, right, where there's heads and tails, is the same relationship that you have with the doing part of the business and the numbers part of the business. And the middle part and that in between part, that little part that's in between that quarter that holds it together, is really that strategy and that advisory services that CPAs, accountants, bookkeepers can really evolve their service stack by offering those services and understanding that their ability to look back helps create a trend line and a picture for where we can move forward. All that you need to add is that owner's doer and what they want to do over the next X amount of times, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, or a year.
That's nice. That's nice. That's very interesting. And something else I want to like dive into. We've already talked about it a little bit, and I've done my research, of course, about MAS CPA. And I thought that you've been from the very start a virtual firm. You say that it is obviously so that you don't have any brick and mortar costs, which means that you can charge better prices for your clients. I assume that's one of the reasons. Is one of the other reasons maybe also like a personal reason for you, or what's behind that?
I think at the beginning, I would say that it started out as more of a, hey, is this a model? Is this where the future's going? And a lot of the times, what I say, and luckily, I look a little bit older than I look a little younger than I actually am, right? But when I set it up, I knew that there was going to be something I was going to have to wait for, and it was for millennials to grow up. Right, it was for the next generation that really was leaning in heavily to social media, to the internet and things of that nature. So there was a very much a strategic play on that of going, hey, this is where the future is going. And if we can jump on that trend ahead of time, which I know is something that we'll probably unpack a little bit as technologies changes. Obviously, our firms change a little bit, and we'll dive into that a little bit later on in our conversation. But I think it started with that of going, hey, listen, the paradigm of small business owners needing to take time out of their day to go to an office to get this fancy notebook of tax returns. It's this big thing of paper, and it's in a notebook. It's in a notebook like this, right? That no one's going to ever open up again after they look at it the first time and see what the damage is on their tax return, was waste. It wasn't leveraging my expertise and my time the right way. And in my mind, if we can get the compliance out of the way, then we can really dive into helping the business succeed and grow. So yes, there was a very much a strategic idea behind that of, hey, that cost savings that you get up front can parlay into you leveraging more of that savings on strategy, on building a successful business, right? The second part too is, I'm a big proponent of work-life balance, and my family means absolutely everything. Now, when I started, did I have a family the size that I have now? Working on the third kid that's coming in July, and married my wife and a home and all of those things. Things were a little bit easier, but before then, but work-life balance was everything to me because I knew that down the line, and this is kind of an example of how I'm always thinking kind of ahead, but like accepting the past, right? But if I'm thinking ahead, I'm going to have kids. I'm going to have a wife that wants to go on dates and have time with me as well. We need to build a firm that has accessibility to me, even though there's going to be long hours, right? My family all knows that during tax season, Daddy's never around, but Daddy is around. Dad's right here, right? We can find pockets of time to optimize my time with my family. So I think it's a mix of both, and I think that's an important quality to really understand and to hear out loud. Because the noise that we hear consistently is, oh, I have to work harder, I have to do more, I have to do all of these things, and that there's no way that I'm successful if I don't do that. And there is a lot of truth in that. And especially when you're starting off. And when I was younger, I was grinding, right? Like, and we all grind, but factoring in time for myself meant that I had more time to think about work when I was in it. Because we always talk about work-life balance as taking work home. But if you take work home and you're dwelling on work, all you do when you come to work is you think about what you missed out at home, right? And by setting those proper boundaries early on, it allowed me, as we scaled, to be able to take a deep breath and realize that, hey, even though a client might be screaming for us, right? This was today, and we can respond to them in 24 hours, and that's okay, right? It doesn't mean I need to work until 1 a.m. It doesn't mean I need to go over and above. And that's a hard thing, especially for accountants and CPAs, where our job is to serve you, our job is to help you. And we were always taught, hey, your job is during these periods, you're just grinding, right? If you worked at any other CPA firm that's a big box CPA firm, you knew that you had quotas of hours. When I first was an government auditor in Melbourne, Florida, it was, hey, you're working 55 hours this week. And every Monday we would be told how many hours we were working, right? And you were working that regardless, right? And it became this kind of mantra, right? That you just got used to, that work was everything. And then everything else I have to fit in. It was really important to me to set that boundary early so that when we scale, I can always have time to be fully committed when I'm in work and to be fully committed when I'm out of work.
Yeah, I understand. And one other thing I saw on your website, actually, and you mentioned something with the box just now as well. On your website, you can't think outside of the box if your box is not full. And then also I saw on your LinkedIn, I believe it's the LinkedIn of MAS CPA, that you use the MAS CPA box method.
Correct.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean with the box method and the box to be full?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously we dove into kind of work-life balance. We dove into kind of waiting for millennials, but knowing that the virtual model is something that was going to stick.
Hmm.
Over time, as that kind of evolved, we found opportunities to not only, take some of the efficiencies we were creating and bring them internally a little bit, right? And really starting going, okay, well, we're meeting with all of these customers, and very similar to what I said earlier, hey, we have all of these different industries, we have all these different customer bases. How can we help all of them, by understanding what each one's pain points were? And when we went through and we really analyzed and we evaluated how every business is, especially at the small business level. Now it's very much different if we're dealing with multi-million dollar conglomerates that all have different, streamlined and they're very niche down. But mom and pop shops to successful multi-million dollar companies that started from a ground up and such really all have the same problems. And the reality is this: from 0 to 500, they really just needed compliance done. They needed their taxes done. They needed clean books. From 500 to a million, they started to realize that the importance of a CPA, and that a CPA is a little bit different than your bookkeeper down the street. And the CPA is a little bit different than H&R Block and TurboTax and things of that nature, right? And so they started getting a little taste of, hey, I need to look into estimated tax payments. Hey, my business structure matters just as much as how profitable I am, right? But then they also started getting an understanding that revenue's not king, profit is king, right? And profit is what helps you scale. Revenue is what helps you say that I made this much money. And if you really hear that, revenue just says how much money I made. And this is how much I made. And I can go up and say I made $3 million or I'd made $500,000 or whatever, right? But if you say I was profitable I make 100 grand in profit every year, that just logically means I have free cash flow. I have the ability to invest, right? And so what we really saw there was small business owners, starting at 500 to a million, really for that kind of CPA needed a taste of some strategy and some structure as they move and progress and scale. And then we really saw a big pain point between $1 and $5 million. And between $1 and $5 million, we saw that business owners were so used to that grind, right? That, hey, I just worked my rear end off and I made $1 million. And that's not a secret, guys. If you talk to anybody who says they made seven figures, they worked their butt off to make seven figures. Okay. What changed for them is they did one of two things. They either sold their business, made 600 grand, because newsflash, guys, 40 grand's going away. 40% is going away, not grand. 40% is going away, right? That's your newsflash, right? So you're making 600 grand if you sell for $1 million, right? But then, or they said, hey, I want to get a better multiple. I want to grow a little bit more. I can still do this. And the innate just nature of a small business owner that made it on their own is I can do it by doing more. And it's not about doing more. It's changing I to we, and it's changing me to us. And it's going, hey, I need to build up a leadership team, and I need to lean on experts in their field. And for us in the box method, we have 4 quadrants, right? We have marketing and sales, operations, finance and strategy, and people and leadership. And when we're talking to small business owners, we're getting them to shift from that I to me and that us to we by identifying areas within each quadrant that needs to be focused on that lead to their long-term goals. And that's really the important piece, right? We don't just go, hey, you have these quadrants. All right, get somebody in place to do that. We want to really take a really thoughtful approach. You're the CEO, but you're also you're the chief everything officer right now, right? You've done everything, you've touched everything, you know how everything works. So the first thing that we need to do is identify your quadrants. What are the 3 key things that are going to lead to that long-term goal? If you're trying to sell for an 8x multiple in 5 years, if you're trying to create generational wealth for your family, if you are just trying to attract a PE company, or you want this other company to gobble you up, and you've a good relationship with them, and if you hit certain markers that M&A is going to be perfect for you, right? Those can all be goals, right? It could also be, hey, I just want to buy a yacht. I don't care what it is, right? We set that goal, and then we go, okay, from each quadrant, how do we ensure that every element in each quadrant is really leading to that long-term goal, right? And once we do that, then we do a simple practice of this. Let's clone your best employee. That's you. You're the chief everything officer, right? So let's go through each quadrant and let's write down exactly what you want to have through SOPs. Ensure your SOPs are in place, right? And then we identify if you have the people. And that's really where that leadership team builds up, right? If you want to go from 1 million to 5 million, if you want to go to 1 million to 10 million, you're not doing it on your own back anymore. And I know that some of y'all might sit back and go, I can 100% do that. You're wrong. And listen, you might work your rear end off and get there, and good on you. But to scale properly is to realize it's not about you, and you're no longer the chief everything officer. You're the chief evangelizing officer. Because you know what? You know the best about your business, how it works, and how it runs. And your job is to find leaders that can run those quadrants so that even though you stepped back from doing everything, that you can still evangelize, and it's still the same delivery, the same effort, the same dedication to your customers' success or the widgets that you sell or anything of that nature, except for this is the little thing that happens. You brought in experts that have different voices, that have different experiences, but believe in what you have created. So then that's going to give you insights. It's going to give you expertise, and it's going to give you a vision that leads to that long-term goal, but it's a lot easier. But it all starts with you, with that owner and that small business owner, kind of almost eating a bit of humble pie and going, listen, I need leaders to help me take it to the next step, because that is and this is really the crux of what the box method's for. All we're doing is prepping you to look like the best business you possibly can be, right? We're saying, hey, making sure all these quadrants are full means that you're operating at a capacity that is just like if you had 5 of yous, right? Like you had you as the chief evangelizing officer, and then you had you in each quadrant, right? And if we did that, then you're moving forward in the right direction. But you, as the chief evangelizing officer, are also going to get approached with different opportunities and different initiatives. And you can kind of entertain those little mini boxes outside of your box and decide if you want to bring it into your box or not. And that's really what where and how the box method was kind of created. It was out of that need to help small business owners simplify the scaling process by really taking everything that's in their head, putting it down on paper, and then identifying leaders that can support that, lead to their long-term goals.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the CEOs to know that eventually they need to find, like you say, experts. And instead of thinking, hey, I can, or I'm the only person that can do this, or I must do this, they'll probably find people that are even better than them at doing that.
Correct. Yeah. It's hubris to think that you're the best at everything. You might have made it into $1 million by doing everything, and that's amazing, right? Like, and it's always amazing. Anybody that says they made 7 figures, I'm so proud of them, because I realized the effort that went into it, right? But to go 7 to 8, to to really kind of ramp up your success, and some people don't want to get there, and that's fine, right? If you want something that's long, even stability, and that's why I talked about generational wealth, right? If we're not just building one business, if we're building multiple businesses out of this, then that's fine too. But we need to have our structure in place. And you as a business owner need to kind of learn to trust. And that's hard when you know that you're the best person to serve in the industry that you're serving in, right?
Yeah, I understand. It sounds a lot like you're not just a CPA, but I think you're for your clients also like a mentor.
Some people have said that, coaches, something can say that. I'm just a coach by nature. I'm a former, Division I basketball player, played over in Germany for a little bit, so sports is always in my blood. I'm the director of our basketball league in Epping, New Hampshire. So our kids league. So Epping Youth Athletic Administration. I'm the director of basketball. So, there's a part of me that's always going to be a coach, right? There's a part of me that always wants to help and help fix, right? But there's also a strong core belief in 6 pillars, right? And then we bring this into our box method as well. And it's alignment and optimization, extreme honesty, strategic frameworks, mindful leadership, data-driven decision-making, and innovation after foundation. Those are our 6 pillars that we really drive off of. And that's not just for the box method. That's just how I live my life, right? Clarity is important. So, if I'm not, and just bringing life into it a little bit, if I'm not clear with my wife of things that I need, she doesn't know my boundaries. She doesn't know things that really fill my cup. And she also doesn't know if she's asking certain things and I'm swamped. If I'm not clear with her, she just thinks I'm ignoring her, right? My kids, if I'm not clear on certain tasks that I want them to have done, they're going to sit down and watch YouTube or put on a podcast like we're doing right now. All of those types of things, right? And you don't come with clarity without pure alignment. You don't come with clarity without extreme honesty and realizing that it's better to kind of say something up front than to hide it behind something and it get uncovered another way, right? Strategy and strategic frameworks are everything, in business, in life, in everything. If you really want to be successful, you've got to build a system behind it. And that's all that strategy is. It's building many systems that all work together to create one giant system that produces success. Mindfulness is something that I will not own that I had earlier on in my career. Mindfulness is something that I added through meditation, through really deep thought and reflection to ensure that like I'm always present. Just kimono thing again, Levi, you sent some emails, but we met earlier, right? And it's important for me to be mindful of the questions that were there. Maybe I did prepped, maybe I didn't prep, but I still had those in mind so that I could know what's coming up, so that I could be present in this call, right? Everything's turned off here, right? I'm present, right? There's not anything going on where I'm doing some work on the side where you see with some people, I'm here, right? And then when we dive into data-driven decision making, I'm a CPA. That's everything for me, right? Like numbers talk to me, right? And if numbers talk to me, then I can help you, right? With where you need to go. We just need to find a way to quantify those, right? And then innovation after foundation is huge, and that's why the box method, ensuring everything for your business as it runs today is in place, just like everything you have for your life is in place. Then you can start thinking outside of the box. And when you start thinking outside the box, you get creative. And that's one of the things that's 100% a basketball thing, right? You don't become an elite athlete by knowing fundamentals and by just doing what everybody's taught you. You use your fundamentals as a base, just like we use our business box as a base, right? And then and then you use your creativity to go, what's next? And where can we go with this base, right? And same thing, if I know how to make a layup, and we see this with like James Harden, he came into the league and changed the whole paradigm of the league by doing a Euro step, which is something that in Europe they were doing. That's why it's called the Euro step, right? But it was an ability to, everybody was so used in the US that, hey, we do a layup and we go just like this. And then, the things that have changed off of that one Euro step of, hey, now you don't have to jump off when you're shooting a right-hand layup. You don't have to jump off your left foot. You can jump off your right foot, and you can do a reverse. All of these things are creativity that comes off of the principle of understanding how to make a layup, right? And so in that same sense, we want to do the same thing as a business as well, right? We want you to be stable in your core so that you can think of initiatives and activities that you could do outside of your box that could also be incorporated into your box, which does what? Helps you scale, brings in another revenue stream. You systemize that, and it gives another offering that you have as a business that was different than what you had before, that makes you more attractive to that business owner you might want to be selling to, or that PE company that comes in, or that investor that wants to fuel your growth, right? All of those things matter. So,
and what are things that you have done outside of the box, or like creative things? Because I know we've already talked about this a little bit. I want to dive into this a little bit. You're doing everything virtual, of course. You've also like systemized a couple things. You've got, we've talked about this already. Like you've got some custom GPTs, some AIs that you're working with. What creative things have you implemented in your business, or have you done to be different or to think outside of the box?
Yeah, and I think this comes with being hyper present and being, but also not being the chief everything officer. Over time, I realized I couldn't do it all, right? I needed to have a team that led my taxation. I needed a team that led my bookkeeping, and then I wanted to keep and I wanted to develop and grow the client advisory services that we were having. But my job's not just to grow a service line, right? If I'm practicing what I preach, or if I'm eating my own medicine, as I like to say, then eventually somebody needs to be in control of that. But that also led to going, okay, if I need to be in this revenue stream right now, and this is what every owner does, and I'm never saying that just because you're a chief evangelizing officer, you don't need to dive in and focus on a revenue stream or an issue or a pain point that's happening internally, right? For us, it was a strategic play to growing that, right? So where that is my focus, that's over the last 3 or 4 years. It's also been my focus to understand the technology that's coming through, understand where it's taking us, and how we can leverage it best to give the best services to our customers. So that's not that's not just leaning on kind of death and taxes like our industry normally likes to do, and going, all right, the code says this, okay, AI CPA tells me this, all right, these are these things that I need to use. It's also going, okay, how do we make the customer experience better? How do we give them an online portal that makes it super seamless for them to upload, so that they, even though they're not using TurboTax anymore, they get the feel of TurboTax because they're just giving us their stuff. We ask them a few questions and then we work through their returns that way, right? And then walk them through later and make adjustments as we need to make adjustments after we've walked them through. Things like that were early stage kind of innovations of like, hey, how can we offer a thing where they don't have to mail me something that takes 2 or 3 days? All right, how we can make it so it's seamless, right? How do we have systems that are in place to know that, hey, once we complete a return, an automatic email is going out and letting them know that, hey, on your portal now has the updated return for you to review. Please set up your client walkthrough. How do we ensure that on our onboarding process, that our first 30 days are the most excellent days that anybody has ramping up with us? They understand, they have the clarity of what's going to go on next. We have access to all of their systems, and we ensure that we understand by building out SOPs for them to ensure that we are actually accomplishing everything that they need on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on a yearly basis. And then going from there is, how are we storing that information? How do we know what each client needs? So that's building out databases. That's understanding, leveraging operations and operable tools like Monday.com, which we use heavily, and is our it's our CRM, it's our ops board, it's everything for us, right? Every revenue stream that we have is there, and we track it accordingly, and we know what the scope is for each and every one of our customers. But then you go, okay, all right, so we got our systems in place. There's a lot of new technology now that's there, that's a bit different from just Basecamp, which we used when we first started out, right? Basecamp's evolved into so many different platforms that we were able to kind of leverage. But then we get into, okay, how do we make contracts more simple? All right, well, let's find tools for that. How do we do X, Y, and Z? It's finding all your technology stack, but a technology stack that works for you, that you're actually going to use, because it's really easy for us to hear noise and just buy anything under the sun and go, yeah, I need to use that too. Oh, Apollo AO, I need to use that. HubSpot, I need to use that. Okay, all right. And on top of that, I need to also have this portal here, and then I need to also use this practice management tool, and I also need to. It's just noise, and for a lot of owners, and that's all CPA firms are. We're a bunch of owners. That's noise, right? And that we get to a point where we're gonna get paralyzed. And for a lot of firms, they stay there. And they go, I'm good. I got enough. It organizes. My list is here. I know what needs to get done. And they're paralyzed in thinking about what's next. And it's important for us as an industry to understand what's next, because the power of AI will take our compliance work. It will, right? Whether that is fully taking it off the board by these big dog companies like TurboTax, like H&R Block, like Tax Act, all of those things, taking your compliance level stuff and saying, listen, we can do all of that, and AI, it can be AI powered, and we can have a guy validate it for you, right? Or it's going to be the softwares that we buy, the Drake softwares, the Thomson Reuters, all of those, those different CCH, all of those tools are going to get so efficient that, and this is another kimono thing, that when we do the return, most of the return is going to get done, right? But then that leaves us with more time. So what do we do with that more time? Do we just sit back on it and just accept it and go, okay, our profit margins are a little bit better because we're putting in less time? Or do we realize that time, if we spend that on giving a little carrot on planning, or a little carrot on strategy, or improving our management reports that we provide every month, right? Or, those little things are value adds that are going to create a streamline for you, that is the client advisory services that every CPA is trying to figure out the magic code for, right? And why, just in addition to that, of AI taking that work, why not leverage AI? Why not leverage it to help you improve your delivery, improve the offerings that you're giving, the value that you're giving to customers? Now, I'm not saying let AI be your advisor. That's silly. You've went to especially a CPA, you've went to a lot of school, you've passed a lot of exams, and you've also met with so many different business owners that a lot's in here. So I'm not saying go into Chat GPT or Grok or anything and just go, give me this strategy plan. I'm saying leverage AI the way technology companies are now. Build out the information and the knowledge that you have into a custom GPT, right? Build it for each customer. Hey, I know that all of this information is involved. These are the things that I'm concerned about. These are the things that I want to make sure I leverage, and let it be your validation tool. Very similar to what Ray Dalio says in this principal book of he created a bunch of Excels that had information about market history from years in the past. And when he had an idea, he came up with the idea, he wrote it down, and he tested it off of his Excels. And when his Excels matched him, he went with that strategy. And that's a cool way for CPAs to leverage the wealth of knowledge that's up here, the speed and agility that's with AI, and go, hey, if AI matches me, boom, how are we good? And if we save that information, then you've got a running trailing history, just like the Excels that Dalio had, right? Now, there's a lot of security around this, and I don't want to gloss over that. You know, that you need to have a solid AI policy. You need to ensure that certain information is not shared, and understand, especially if you're not under a massive paid plan, that your information is very much accessible in certain capacities and is getting out in the universe. So there needs to be a strong AI policy, but leveraging AI to be your companion that is validating your thoughts, that is helping you aggregate a lot of data. Those things are extremely important, and that's where the future is, because CPAs are going to be needing to lean more heavily on that client advisory services. Now, there's still going to be people that aren't going to use technology, and you'll still have tax returns, and you'll still have bookkeeping work that you can get done and everything. But as it gets more simplified, and as you see more PE companies run around and gobble up every other CPA firm that they possibly can to create basically a new pilot, which is a massive bookkeeping firm, which is all that's happened, right? A bunch of different clients from a bunch of different bookkeepers got gobbled up, and then we created this company called Pilot that can just churn things out, right? Though that's going to be the more prevalent thing. So the more you're willing to put yourself on the edge and learn, right, the more you're going to be successful in the kind of new world and new economy we're in. I used to always think when I graduated from Stetson University that my accounting information systems undergrad was silly, and I didn't understand why I learned SQL. I didn't understand why I learned all of those things. And it's actually been the best tool for me, because it's forced me to think a little bit more techie and think a little bit more from a systems perspective of how we deliver, rather than from a death and taxes perspective of how we deliver.
And that has helped you out really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your favorite tool or favorite AI that you've implemented or worked with in the past, or that you're still working with?
So we are actively in the process of developing our own kind of proprietary GBT. We're leveraging in GBT, starting fresh there. I jumped on that and right when it almost came out. You know, I jumped on it and immediately started to understand what it was. You know, back November 2023, 22, something like that, right? Right, and so really got into it and really started thinking about, you know, how we could leverage it, how it could be utilized. You know, at first it was just a great communication tool. All right, hey, make sure that I'm being clear here in my messages. Make sure that, you know, I'm thinking this, and this. Make sure that this message is coming through, you know, how I'm expecting it to come in. So then I could have kind of conversations with it and really understand how it worked. From there, we kind of evolved it into building a custom GBT that's a very private GBT just for our team. That was strictly communications to start, right? Hey, these are the topics. What we did was we amassed all of the tax code. We amassed all of our SOPs that we have as a business, right? So that kind of cloning your best employee, we had done that, right? And we had fed all that information in. We leveraged, you know, the software stack that we were using on and all the program guides there, and really started building out a solution that not only helped us with clarity and communication, right? Stripped out all of the emojis and iconography and dashes and all the nonsense that comes with AI normally now, right? And we said, hey, we want to really make this something that's a tool that helps our staff get better at communication. And then from there, we like, all right, they got better at communication. Let's get better at understanding the why. So you know, this custom JBT, if they come in and ask, it doesn't just give you an answer. It goes, okay, you're asking because of this, and this, and then kind of ask follow-up prompts that goes, do you want this for this? Do you want this for that? Or do you want this for this? And that allows the team to keep their brain going, right? Because it could be very easy to go, all right, AI's right, click. All right, AI told me this, drop it in here. We went away from that and really tried to make it as much of a tool to understand as much as it is a tool to help, right? So started with communications, then started helping guide guide staff on like, hey, these, and then we started to kind of, as it evolved and we paid attention to the evolution of it, then we started to get into kind of, okay, how can you aggregate data for us? How can we take these reports and build a pivot without having to be in Excel for 3 hours, right? Like, things like that allowed us to kind of really dive into some things and set some groundwork. And that's kind of how this evolved, right? We started the groundwork so that it would start a base for us, and then we started doing our work on top of the base, right? And then it kind of turned into a thing where it becomes a strategic advisor. We fed it enough information. We've had enough conversations where it really is something that when we're talking about communications, it fills in our mission, our vision, our values, our ethos into the message so that it always comes off authentically as who we are, right? Because it's really easy to write a quick email that's fast. Right, and then fire it off, right? But you can do that, and you can say, hey, just make sure that this follows MAS CPA, and that's helped us so much with our communications. Our clients are more happy, and they understand things a little bit more, and you can even see it when we send an email out that's not tailored, that's not that's not thoughtful and clear. Clients are like, what do you want me to do again? But then when we take the time, and I'm always a big proponent of, you write it, you leave it for a little bit, you come back to it, you review it, and you rewrite it again, right? So now all we do is you write it, you drop it into AI, you reread it again, you sit on it for a while, you rewrite it, and then you send it off, right? Talking about those policies again, right? We don't want you to just copy and pasting from AI and firing it off, right? So that's kind of where we evolved from really a communication tool to then like a coaching tool to then, as we started amassing a lot of information in there, to a tool that ended up being a kind of like a junior advisor for us, right? That could take the data and kind of say, hey, might want to look here, here, and here, and then we could use that as that kind of validation cue off of what we were doing manually, right? Because there's still going to be that process, and I don't think that's ever going away in my industry, at least, right? We're always going to dive into an Excel and crunch some numbers to make sure, and we're always going to double check and triple check and tie, right? So that was kind of how we evolved into it, where now we have something that we call Massey. It's Mark A. Stiles, CPA's strategic intelligence, right? And she is the person that we can kind of go to and ask certain questions and kind of bounce some ideas off of to kind of help embolden our strategy. So a perfect example, if I'm working on a cash flow projection for a customer and we're looking out 6 months, and I build out this cash flow summary and all my assumptions are there, but then I set up and I do a little walkthrough with the client, and I have my Fathom AI recording on, and it's recording all those notes. Then I can then take my model, I can drop that model into Massey and then give her the notes from the meeting and go, are we really capturing and is the client understanding, right? And then Massey will come back and go, yeah, you're trending right, but the client might be getting confused here. So maybe add this, and this to make it to provide more clarity, right? Or hey, I'm seeing your projection here, but there's 3 strategies that we could look at that could maybe assist and increase that profitability. Have you thought of these 3 things, right? Those are things that are going to guide my staff where I don't have to be sitting over them. And if you think about when we talk about the box method and being able to kind of clone your best employee to really empower your business box, we're leveraging AI to kind of be that tool that helps our staff be that much smarter, right? Because if you've got an MBA, you have a doctorate now, right? If you have an undergrad, you have a master's degree now, right? If you have no college degree, you do have a college degree now, and it's really on how you ask, how you work through, and how you spend time building systems within AI that can actually work for you and for your business.
And what does the future look like for you? What are the things that you're working on right now? What do you want to like build towards right now with MAS CPA?
Yeah. So, you've brought up the website. We actually have a new website that's probably coming, that's expected to launch on Monday. I think that is the 18th, right? So I know that people might listen to this at different times, right?
Just quickly in between, sorry to interrupt you, but your website looks amazing, and you're already putting out a new website now.
Yeah, well, it's in one thing. So our website's great. It has a lot of information, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Almost to the point of it has too much information. And just like I talked about noise with technology and softwares and everything like that, that can create noise. And one of the big things that I wanted to do, and it was interesting when we went through the website design, it was like, you got like 83 pages. I'm like, I don't want more than 10, right? And so we really worked on streamlining and being hyper clear on our service offerings, but also providing context and resources for our existing customers to use our tools to know where to go to get certain things done, but also to be a great tool for any small business owner or things that wants to dive in. Listen, I think the best thing that I've ever done is I go to other people's websites and I see what they're offering and understand how they're offering it. And even if I can't get too much information, it helps me in the thought process of, hey, what can I improve, right? So what we want to do here for small business owners is have that be a tool that can guide you a good amount of the way. And then if you want some more, if you want the power of a person, we want to give you that person. So when you talk about the future, that new website, the website's step one. Step two is taking Massey and actually having her in our website and having kind of that chat that, hey, I can come in, and if I'm really, and one of the big things that we've always done is if it's a question I can answer under 15 minutes, or that I can answer in a quick email, I'm going to give it to you and you're not going to pay a cent for it, right? So, but if we can give that on the website, that's clients that know me, that hear it when we have our kickoff meeting, that our ethos really centers around having educated customers and really building a partnership with a customer, not necessarily treating it like a customer relationship. We want to be partners with you in your growth, right? So when we're doing that, having a tool that's in there that just kind of automatically you can ask a couple questions and it can give you some really good feedback that's really going to be very similar, if not the exact same wording that I would give you, because we've really tried to clone our best employee with AI, right? Then I see a lot of value in small business owners and everybody kind of growing from there, right? So, that is kind of where we're evolving there. And then to bring those people in and to really start, helping businesses succeed. I'm a big proponent of the universe abiding, right? It's really easy to kind of go, hey, revenue, 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 revenue. Hey, and I want to be this profitable, this profitable, this profitable. But we've made it 16 years on almost this in marketing spend. So that means that, our clients are happy. That means our customer base understands where we're going and understands, the care that we're putting in to every single customer. And if that's the case, then that gets us a whole long way down the line, right? So all we can do now is add tools that only embolden that. And if we add those tools that embolden that, then it gives customers, but it gives people that are potential customers in the future for us a tool and access to information that might be behind a paywall in other places, right? So, that's kind of where, the future really is for us. For me personally, from a strategic standpoint, I think compliance, if you're focused solely on tax and bookkeeping and compliance, your firm is going to be closing within the next 5 years. If you're focused on client advisory services, if you're focused on leaning in on technology and understanding the technology, there's so many CPAs that are like, yeah, I just don't get in it because I don't understand it. Well, it's time to learn, right? We've had 20 years where the internet's been everything, right? Where it's been everything. And I say 20 years because in 2004, when I graduated, this magical thing called Facebook came up, and we had this hot or not thing at Stetson University. We were one of the pilot, what you call it, pilot schools that they were, because it used to be always on for anybody who's younger. Facebook used to only be accessible if you had a college email address, right? So we had to have Stetson.edu, and that was kind of the start of a different paradigm in how the internet was used, right? And from there, it's really expanded. And not only has it expanded in giving a wealth of information out there, but it's created softwares that are only born on the internet and only browser-based or cloud-based, right? And it's created AI that's only browser-based and cloud-based, right? So if you're stuck in your old model as a CPA firm, and I know this is a big thing of what this podcast is for, and you're stuck in this old model of, hey, we do this compliance work and there's death and taxes, so I'll always be there. The news flash that I want to give you is you might be there, but your revenues are going to go down. You might be there, but you're missing out on an opportunity that's really beneficial, and it's something that you're perfectly fit for by touching so many businesses as you have in your career, right? So, if I could give any and impart any wisdom, it would be really lean into technology, understand that ain't going anywhere. If anything, it's only getting stronger. So the more ahead you are with AI and understanding that can be a strategic partner for you, the understanding that your tech stack matters, and you've got to filter through the noise so that you can find the stack that actually works for you, and that you don't realize that. In another thing that we didn't really touch on is that there's a global economy and you should be leveraging that global economy, right? If you're not on those three things, you're a dinosaur, and dinosaurs are extinct. And
For a reason.
Yep. And listen, I'm all for competition. I don't want any CPA firm to go away. I love our industry. I love the profession I chose. I love that I got that degree up there and like or that those degrees up there and I got that little diploma saying I'm a CPA. I think it's everything. I think it gives us so much power. But in our industry, we have workhorses and we have rainmakers. And it used to be that complete separation there. Well, the way technology is you need that's kind of brought us all both closer together, right? So as a workhorse, you might love doing your job, but you need to be a little bit of a rainmaker, which means understanding how you can make yourself more efficient and how you can do more by evangelizing what you do best, right? And so I think that's really important because that's what rainmakers do. They have that gift of gab, that their ability and the ability to kind of talk to a small business owner and make them understand why they're valuable for not only compliance but also advisory services. And if you have a firm where you have a bunch of workhorses, you might not have thought about the advisory services because that compliance work keeps coming in. But I implore you to either find somebody that is that rainmaker for you, or step out of your comfort zone and realize that technology and the internet and AI and all of those things are going to be your best friend to help you get out of your comfort zone in a comfortable way.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you're. It doesn't sound like it. I'm sure it is, but you're very deep into this topic, and you've got really like your things in check with your firm. But one thing that makes me curious, and I think especially for the listener as well, you've got everything pretty good in check, and like very good in check. But what are things that you are like? What are challenges that you are facing right now with technology or with changes that you're trying to tackle with the firm?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think when we talk about technology, you got to do what most people in technology do when they're creating, right? And it's harkening off of sci-fi. It's harkening off of things that they've saw. It's a big reason why most elements that are in Star Trek are actually in place right now, right? Because you got a bunch of Trekkies that got into technology. We're like, we can build this, right? I mean, I think the pain points that you're going to have are just the fact that there is going to be limitations to technology as it evolves, and you need to be aware of that just as much as you need to be aware of what it can do for you. So all of the fun stuff that I talked about, what we're building and what we can do with custom GPTs or leveraging AI to improve our communications or to really understand our mission, values, vision, and ethos, so that we can impart that into everything that we do. There's a lot of that, but there's a lot of errors that come out of that. AI is not perfect, just like people aren't perfect. So there's a lot of double checking. If you're leveraging technology like AI and stuff like that, there's triple and quadruple checking, right? And finding efficiencies in that is obviously something that's there. And I think it's also one of the things that comes in within our industry is an aging population. Our industry is getting older, and it's not really necessarily replacing itself. And it's not replacing itself with a demographic that is today's demographic, right? And I think that's what's really important to kind of to understand. The diversity is not necessarily in our industry, and because it's not a sexy profession, right? But where it can go is very sexy. If you can sit there and say, "Hey, I helped you grow X, and you became X more profitable," and you have a Rolodex of businesses that are successful and that are following your advice and everything, that's what you do inside of a business, right? And if that becomes something that our industry really leans on, of how we can be strategic advisors rather than being people that look in the past, I think you're going to see that the demographic is going to come back, is going to improve, and it's going to get more diverse, which means we have better voices. And when we have better voices, we have better solutions. And that's, I think, the thing that's always a roadblock is finding those better voices. It's understanding the limitations of technology, and it's also ensuring that there's not waste in your tech stack. So a lot of the things that I said that you need to be prepared for are the things that I'm worried about and the things that I'm actively trying to figure out how we get past, right? And I think the very last thing is something that it would be hubris for me to say that I'm not probably one of the worst people in the world for it. I've always said it, I'm not a salesperson. I don't understand marketing enough. And I would probably argue that most of people in my profession are very similar to me. We focused on accounting. We focused on strategy. We focused on taxation. We focused on how those all work in an ecosystem with a business. We didn't focus on how do we get our message out there. How do we ensure that that people understand that we're here, right? Because I think that's something that in our industry we get a lot of noise, right? I get 30 or 40 emails a day, kind of go, hey, let me do this LinkedIn optimization for you. Let me do this for you. Hey, we can scrub this and send out cold emails, right? And all of those things are opportunities for revenue. And I think it's great to look into them all, but a lot of it's also noise and finding out. And for us, it was filling that quadrant, right? That marketing and sales quadrant of how do we find the right expert that can really, that understands who we are, and that also can support our growth. I think that's kind of what I'm always worried about. So to quickly summarize that, technology, staffing expertise, and marketing strategy is really
Marketing
the
strategy.
three areas that we're really diving into to try to make sure that we really knock out the park, because we do believe that we have expertise, we do believe we have skill sets that can really help small businesses grow. And I think that there's multiple firms that also have that as well. And I'm really tired of seeing, you know, young guns saying that they're a CFO that's basically worked in one place in their entire career, right? That's hard, right? No, there's a lot of success stories, a lot, right? Like of people that just started off and sat down and read everything they possibly could and learned. But the best CFOs you could probably find are going to be the ones that have three letters behind their name, and it's CPA. And it would be great to see us really take ownership of that service line and that service industry that's really becoming a burgeoning industry for us, is that kind of fractional CFO work. And that's primed for a CPA. We just need to be prepared to take that on, understand what those pop-up CFOs are doing, which is leveraging AI, which is leveraging systems, which is leveraging marketing funnels and things of that nature, right? Is understanding that, because death and taxes is over. It's death, taxes, and advisory services. And that's the way every CPA firm should be thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, I really want to thank you for the past, for answering all the questions. You've given a lot of good advice, a lot of good insights for me, and I think the listeners as well. One last question that I have, and that is, what is one last piece of advice that you would give to other accounting firms, but I think also entrepreneurs in general, that want to grow or innovate their business in 2025?
For small business owners that want to grow and scale their business, profit first. And that needs to become a mantra. It's really easy to think revenue. That's why everybody's like, oh, I want to be a seven-figure this, seven-figure that. If you were saying seven-figure profit, then I'd be like, whew, hey, that's a lofty goal, right? Yeah, but everybody's saying seven figures in revenue, and that's great. But if you're making no money and making seven figures in revenue, do you really have a successful business? Or do you just have a revenue stream, right? So I think that's the big thing,
You've
is
got a
understanding your
liability.
profit and making that first, right? The equation that's always been tried and true is revenue minus expenses equals profit. I don't agree with that. Profit minus revenue equals the expenses that you have. That is what you get to work with, right? Yeah, hey, I want to make X amount of profit. I'm bringing in this amount of revenue. Then you only have this much for expenses, and that's really where especially when you get to that kind of $1 million marker, right? That's where you need to start thinking, right? It's like, and if you can think earlier on, you're going to be so much better at getting to seven figures than that person that just got to seven figures laissez-faire, right? So that's the first thing I would want to say to small business owners, is think profit first. Make your equation profit minus revenue equals the expense bandwidth that I have, right? I think that's really, really important. For CPA firms, I think and it's funny because when I say it, and I'm one of them, right? When I think of a CPA firm, I think of a turtle shell. And so what I can impart to CPAs is stick your head out of your shell, right? Stick your head out of your shell for a little bit, because it's really easy to stay in your shell and, hey, we're doing our work, and we're working at our speed, and we're going to get it done, and clients are going to be happy because they're going to be compliant and everything. And that's just not where the world is anymore. And in addition to that, by staying in your shell, you are doing yourself an injustice, because you really are the expert that these small business owners are looking for. And small business owners, if you're still listening, CPAs are the experts that you're looking for. They just might not know how to say it. But everything that you're looking for with, hey, where do I go next? How do I go next? How do I make this work? Yes, that comes from leaders that have experienced it and done that with you. And you do need to have your business box full, right? That you need to have leaders in that marketing and sales, that operations, finance and strategy, and people and leadership. But you also need to really understand that all of those things and how all those things interoperate center around what you know, right? Each of those quadrants need KPIs. You can provide those. You can track those. You can help each leader that needs to have that data to drive their decision making in their quadrant. You can help them drive that. It's interesting when we go into doing a box method assessment. Some customers are like, "Oh, you're doing you touch all these things." It's like, no, no, no. I am not the doer here. I am the person going, have we identified? And these are your goals. So these are the KPIs that we should be looking at. Now you need to empower your leader to understand that they have those 3 plus a million others that they need to track, right? And we can support them in that, right? That's kind of where it becomes this thing where I touch everything as a CPA. If we're doing well, each thing has its own. It's not just the holy trinity of financials. I'm not just doing balance sheet, profit and loss, and statement of cash flows. We're also evaluating the KPIs that you got set up that are leading you to the promised land that you've established, your objectives, your long-term goals, right? So if that's the case, then a CPA can be integral in every single part of your business, which then creates that CFO, right? Like that really does provide that fractional CFO support that small business owners are looking for.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Where can people find you? If they're looking for your help, maybe, or if they're looking for more information about who you are, or if they want to learn more from you?
Yeah, you can always find us on www.markstilescpa.com. That's MARKSTILES. C as in Charlie, P as in Paul, A as in Apple.com. That's my website. You can find me on LinkedIn. You look up my name, Mark A. Stiles. You'll find me there. That's really the best place you can get us. You can always give us a phone call at 866-627-2721. Just 866 MAS CPA 1. Those are really the best ways to reach me. If you want to reach me via email, mark.stiles@markstilescpa.com. Make it really easy. Just remember my name. You'll probably find me.
Perfect. And we will make sure to put all the links in the description of the podcast as well. Mark, really thanks a lot for all the insightful information. Thanks a lot for sharing your story and your perspective. Any last words?
Certainly. No, it's a pleasure being on the podcast. I always enjoy, kind of sharing some thoughts and everything. Hopefully it was useful to some of you guys listening to this. If it wasn't, I always go for my grandfather, who was a commander in the Navy's adage of, if the shoe fits, wear it. If not, put it in a shoebox and put it in your closet, right? And see it for another date.
And I think if they're still listening by now, they were very interested in your story.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. This was The Balance.